What's going on, guys? It's Average Player here, and we're going to go over the comic tutorial for Sprites. I know I haven't uploaded in a little bit. I've been super busy, albeit with work or, you know, just playing the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Other than that, it's literally just been work, been nothing but working. We gotta love it. We're going to toss the extra deck over here, and we're just going to shuffle up. I changed the sleeves to white and black because there's an announcement. Me, Karma, and MadMat9955 will be going to the YCS in Philadelphia, and I hope to see people there. And I hope to make it both days, because even though this is the deck I'm playing and a lot of you are going to be seeing it, that I hope that I'm still able to do what I can to make it as far as I can. But as you guys can tell by the title in this video, I'm going to show you the Spright combos, and I'm also going to show you where you should interact with Spright, because it's a little weird when interacting with them. Where should you hit them is the main part, because obviously you don't know what your opponent has in their hand. So how are you going to stop your opponent enough to where they can't play? So here, I'll show you. We're just going to do random cut, and we're going to draw 5 blue. Called by Beaver starter Gamma. So here, interrupting your opponent's kind of a stupid thing to do. You don't know that they have the. So if your opponent's gonna interrupt you, they don't know that you have the Gamma in your hand, and they don't know that you have the starter or the blue or the Beaver. So this is combo. Your opponent's not really interrupting with you with this, because you can always save this starter. Say they interrupt your Gigantic, and you can't stop them from nibbing you. This is going to be your anti-nib. Not your anti-nib. This will be your way to play through the nib. Alright, so we're just going to start off basic combo. And if your opponent decides to ash you, we do have the called by in hand. But if you activated the starter first, if they ash you, you can Gamma first. This way you can just have 2 monsters on the field. One's level 2, one's non-level 2. And this way, if your opponent does nib you, you still have a normal summon like Beaver and all that other stuff. You have a normal summon in Beaver, you have the special summon in Spright Blue. You know, you got your multiple options that you can work here. But we're just going to start off by normal summoning the Beaver, using its effect to summon Angler from the deck. And this combo I've been working on a little bit, because I've been getting hit with nib on my Sprint summons, or my Angler summons on the graveyard for Sprint. So I'm just going to XC summon right away for Gigantic Spright. Use his effect. And this, people, is that even if you know what I have in my hand, even if you don't, you want to hit Gigantic Spright here with Imperm, Ash, or a Ghost Ogre. The most detrimental thing you can hit it with is a Ghost Ogre, because it doesn't get his detach, and he doesn't get his effect off, and he just gets sent to the graveyard. And then I'd have to use my other 2 resources to get myself going again and attempt to activate the Gigantic again, because it never really activated. It didn't resolve, so I didn't use its effect. And so you're detaching the Angler to summon from deck. So this is where you interrupt. Another place you can interrupt is on the Sprint coming up next. But we're going to normal summon, or not normal summon, we're going to special summon Ibly from deck. So in this scenario, we're going to give my opponent 2 ways to not be able to nib us. So right now, Gigantic Spright is making it to where my opponent can't nib us at all. And we can't even resolve the Gamma because we can't special summon the level 6. Which is fine. We want to make sure we have the Gamma available for our opponent's turn, with all the interruptions we're going to be able to put out. I would say that, yes, we can put out Totally Awesome in this board. We cannot. So we're going to link 2. For Sprint, and the way you're going to do it is chain 2 Ibly, chain 1 Sprint, because they're both mandatory triggers, and Ibly's in the graveyard, Sprint's on the field. So that's the way you want to play it, because your opponent has to respond to the Ibly before responding to the Sprint. So only cards like Imperm and Effect Veiler would work to stop your Sprint. But if not, we're just going to give your opponent the Ibly. We're just going to place it right there. I don't know if you guys can see that. You can. We're just going to give the opponent the Ibly, and we're going to use the Sprint's effect to dump a monster. We're going to dump the Angler. Angler's effect is going to trigger. So I'm telling you guys where you should interact with the deck. that's another interaction point with the deck, is if you interact with the Angler in the graveyard, because then you're leaving me with no monsters on the field except for the Link 2. And you're basically forcing me to just make a really big, gigantic and pass, kind of. Other than you still don't know what I have in my deck. Or not in my deck, but on board. There's a couple routes we can go here. So, because we have the Gamma in hand, let's make it live for my opponent's turn. We're just going to immediately link 2 into the Lambda. So now Gamma's live at all times. Alright, special summon blue. Use its effect to search. And it's only a monster. So we're just going to search a monster. We're going to search out Jet. Now we're going to special summon out Jet, use its effect. And here we're basically just going to make... Well, that's very tough, having all imperms at the bottom. We're going to make our opponent's way of playing the game very hard. So now we're going to add Double Cross. So any card that they're bringing into the field or into their graveyard, we can snatch that. So if they trigger, like they have their own Angler in grave, right? And not their own Angler, like their own Ibli in grave, I can trigger, steal it, and absorb it under a monster so it doesn't resolve. It doesn't go to the field. I'm not locked into anything, yada, 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 if that makes sense. As long as the card has to banish itself, is not cost, it's not going to go anywhere. Or if your opponent has a monster on field, I can snatch it, absorb it into my monster, or place it in a zone that the Link monster points to. In this case, we don't have a zone, and we're just going to make an XE monster to snatch it anyway. In the board that we're going to be making, we're hoping that our opponent is going to trigger off, or going to special summon in some way. Because if they don't, they're really just going to end up dead. So now we're going to make Mannequin Cat. And yes, we're going to put them in attack position. Even though we're successful with the Lightning Storm here, we are going to make a way to do Lightning Storm. Or stop Lightning Storm. And I don't know who would main deck it. We're going to activate the starter now. In here, depends on what you're playing against. If you know your opponent's going second or whatever, and it's already round 2, I would summon Carrot. But if you're not sure, I just summon Red. Have that negate on board of just a monster card. Or, if you don't want to do red and you're figuring that your opponent is playing a trap deck, or have the Lightning Storm, I'd summon out Carrot. This way, you have Double Cross, you have Called By, and you have Gamma, all in your hand. Double Cross and Called By are going to be set. You have a way to make your opponent special summon on their turn, but it doesn't really matter because you're just going to probably be killing them anyway. You have an activation of Ciphering Your Gamma from your hand from Lambda. You have a Spell and Trap Negate, and then you have a Bounce with Sprint, and you have an Absorb with Double Cross. So this is your typical board that you can make, and that's all from just making a Gigantic first. The problem with making the Gigantic first, as I said, is your opponent can interrupt you there. If you don't have any follow-up, then you're going to have a really tough time. Because, well, most of your monsters require you'd have something on the field. And if he's gone, you don't got nothing. But in our case, in that hand, we just got very lucky, and we just had the extra oomph. Let's show you another test hand another way. So this is a way that, unfortunately, is going to get you nibbed easier. But if you have the follow-up, nib doesn't really hurt. So I'm just going to show you guys this way. And we're to interrupt on this one. And nib does become a factor in this one, so I can show you where to nib and where it actually hurt a Spright player. If they're playing, I'm not saying they're playing the same exact build, but Spright players are generally playing close to enough build to this. So shuffle. We're going to cut. And draw 5. 1. Solemn Judgment. Gamma, Carrot, Blue, Frog. That's fair. Here, because we can, normal summon Swap Frog. We're going to activate Swap Frog's effect. I don't know why anybody would actually want to hit this, because the Frog's going to be in the grave. So we're going to dump a Swap Frog to the graveyard. Here now it's going to become even harder for our opponent to hit us. Because what we can do is we can make Bujinki a Hashima first. Like we can special summon blue, special summon carrot, return swap frog to hand, make Bujinki. And on its summon, I have to special summon 2 and then XC summon on resolution. So my opponent can't nib me at all on that. And then I can continue doing what I want to do. But unfortunately, actually I can't continue. That would be about it. Maybe, because blue would have another special summon, I'd get interrupted beforehand. But you can do that too if you want. So activate blue effect. Actually, blue doesn't have another special summon, it just adds. We're going to add Jet. And here the Judgment is like a very big key part of why this deck goes first. Because if your opponent has the deck that relies on their normal summon, or your opponent has a branded deck and they're activated Branded Fusion, Solemn Judgment that bitch. Because now that card's gone, and they already used it. So, but here we're going to special summon the Carrot. Because right now we're not worried about spells and traps. We're going to return Swap Rock to the hand with its own effect. Now we're just going to link 2 for Bujinki effect. Summon out both Swap Frogs. Then XC summon both of them. And we can do it in any zone besides this one for totally awesome. Now we're going to special summon Jet. Now we have our Omni-negate on board. Your opponent activates Nib. They're not going to be able to. We're going to use Jet's effect. This is why I said that you can do this, because this is your 5th summon. And it's a trigger effect where it summons. If your opponent nibs you, you still get it. And as the effect resolves, you still get your XC summon. So when your opponent hits you with that, they're not really doing much. If you get my thing. Because this is going to be chain 1. Nib's going to be chain 2. Nib clears the board. And then it will summon out the 2, make totally awesome. And I still have access to my Jet. So that's why it really doesn't matter. Now we're just going to add Starter to the hand. And here we're going to activate Starter because we have really no other choice. And it really doesn't matter what we bring out. In this case, we can bring out Red because we do have multiple copies of it in our deck. So we're just going to summon out Red. We have 2 options here. We can go for a Sprint and then use Bujinki, which is one thing we can do. We can go into a Sprint here using these 2. Well, that's going into the graveyard. Go into Sprint here using these 2. Or we can go into the Gigantic Sprite right off the bat. And I think the Gigantic Sprite right off the bat is going to be the better play. So we're going to XC summon using those 2. Oh, I'm not going into my main deck. Not yet. For Gigantic Sprite, use its effect. Detach. Reason being is because now we're going to Ibly lock our opponent. Bam. There's Ibly. All in the meantime... Man, oh wait, Gigantic Sprite should have gone here. My bad. My bad. It should have gone there. Because we need to have access to an open zone for Sprint. So now... I can't special summon anything besides level 2s. Level rank... I can only special summon links. So now we're going to link these 2 away for Sprint. Chain 2, chain 1, give our opponent Ibly, and then get Sprint's effect off. We're going to dump Angler. Angler effect, we're going to summon out the Beavers. That's Plague Spreader. See, this board isn't really counted, in my opinion, to be as good as the last board, because we don't really have enough. We're going to link those 2 away for Lambda. And if you don't have Gamma in your hand, you're making IP Masquerena. Just to put it out there. And now we're going to have a set Solemn Judgment Gamma in hand. This is really just the gate board. So we have the Sprint to detach off a Toad to bounce a card. And that's if your opponent, if anyone special summons, you can do that. But your opponent has to deal with the Ibly first. Now they either have to waste their battle phase, or they have a waste to summon to get it out. And I'm not going to Judgment that because they're going to give me the Ibly back in my graveyard, whatever. So I'm not going to Judgment whatever summon they have, unless it's a card that gives them advantage. But in most cases, it's going to be Lingeribo. So if your opponent Lingaribos, the Ibly, not really going to hurt much. You wait. Once they start doing their plays, you can Judgment or Toad it or Sprint it. I would recommend sprinting first to bounce it back to their hand. If they can follow up again, I would, if it's a monster, I would Gamma next. Because Gamma is going to be the negate and destroy without using your Judgment. Judgment should literally be, if it's not the first thing you do, it should be the last thing you do. If your opponent is literally saving all the resources and goes Branded Fusion, let's say, oh, you just use Toad, you already used Gamma, you use Sprint. Monster, this is an Omni, this is a spell or trap and a summon. So you can just hit that on the Branded Fusion. Toad's gone. You have a Gamma on board. You know, now you're set. Now you can use Toad's effect to return it to the deck. I don't play Dupe Frog. So, even if you use Toad's effect to return it to the extra deck after it's into the graveyard, and we have Dupe Frog in here, then we can make another totally awesome. It doesn't really matter, because as soon as we play this board, your opponent really not going to be able to play a Bounce, an Omni, a Summon Negate, and a Spell Trap Negate, plus a Monster Negate that destroys, plus being locked out of Special Summoning. By the time our opponent is done getting interacted with, they're not going to be able to do anything, and on our turn, we're just going to OTK them. Because we are going to have access to make another Gigantic Spright worth 3,200 attack, and then we're going to make Cat Shark to make sure our opponent's dead. So, that's it. And the way you interact with that board, it was kind of hard, but you have to hit the Bujinki. When the Bujinki hits the field, on that one, you have to hit it with the Imperm, or a Ghost Bell, or a Gamma if you have Gamma. So that's what happened. That's what you do in that board with the Bujinki. Because as soon as the deck starts rolling, after that Totally Awesome hits the field, and this was only possible because I had the Swap Frog in my hand, after that Totally Awesome hits the field, you're really not going to hand trap me because I just negate it. So the one part where you want to hit this deck, if you're not hitting the Toad, because of the Totally Awesome and the Bujinki able to summon it from the graveyard, you're going to hit the Bujinki, and that's it. As soon as Toad hits the field, you can't hand trap me at all. And that's what I like. Because after Toad hits the field, you can't hand trap me and the bureau gets shut off. After I hit you a Gigantic Spright, you can't summon anything anyway. So that's basically it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys would do anything different. Look, we still got our whole extra deck back. Look, we got IP Dark, Avermax to go into just to make sure we can beat over things that are indestructible. That's just a Ready Fusion target, another Gigantic, Cat Shark, Centurion, Mannequin Cat, Oni B, and Zeus that we all have left to make sure our opponent is dead. Now, there's been grind games where I've literally used my whole extra deck and gotten lucky off of Oni B Maru. My opponent would be like, beating Oni B Maru, and I'll have double cross on it, so I'll return 3 from my banish zone, which is really helpful because my opponent will sometimes banish my cards. So that's it for the deck, guys, and I'm going to tell you, not the deck, but that's it for the combos. I'm going to tell you, if you know you're going second, the cards you're going to take out are Ibly, Judgment, and the Double Cross. Because all those cards are only good if you're going first. I understand I can Ibly you going second, but I also have to pick your board first. Now, I don't really want to pick your board because my goal in this deck is to... My goal in this deck is to make sure you can't play going turn 1. So after we take all those cards out, so we'll taking out 3 Judgment, 1 Ibly, 1 Double Cross, so that's 5 cards. And then we're taking out a red, so that's 6. And it really depends on what you're playing against. So if you're playing against Cash, you're going to side in the Evenlies, the Dark Rulers, the Sphere Modes, and the Nibs. So we have 6 spots. So what I generally do is just 2, 2, and then 2 or 2. And if you're playing against any back row hate, there you go. These 2 are still in here. The Red Resonator is for time. So if you're going into game 3, you just want to make sure you have enough life points. You can Red Resonator. And if you're Red Resonating, make sure you have Gamma Burst. So you can add off a Jet. Gamma Burst, target your... Not target, but they all gain 1,400. So when your Gigantic Sprite's going from 32 to 46, now you can gain 46. And if you have Cat Shark on the field, that 46 is now going to become 1,002 or 10,002, something like that. or 9,200. So that's how much life points you'd be getting. At that point, your opponent really ain't going to beat you down, especially with a Spright board. Whatever. But that's if you're going first on the game 3 and you're running into time. Because then your opponent's going to have to make sure they play through the Ibly lock and all your life points. But this is for back row hate. It's really good against a whole bunch of back row decks. I play this actually a lot against back row decks. Believe it or not, what I see the most is branded at my locals. It's all I see because the deck is super cheap to make. This does okay against them because I can get rid of their Mirror Jade because they will summon Mirror Jade in attack position. So I will get rid of Mirror Jade with this. And that's basically what that's for. Evenly's for that deck too in Dark Ruler. So I can actually just play through it. I do see one Naturia Ishizu. And believe it or not, the one card that I play against Naturia Ishizu is Nib in Dark Ruler. Believe it or not, a spell card will beat the deck because, you know, they can't respond to it with Nat Beast. So, yeah, that's basically it. That's what you side in. That's how you interact with the deck if you're playing against the deck. Your main pieces that you always want to hit are Sprint and Gigantic. But make sure you know your rulings. If you hit Gigantic with an Ogre, its effect will not activate. It will not resolve because it has to detach and summon all for effect. Sprint, on the other hand, it just sends to the graveyard. That's an effect, not cost. So you can interact with that bad boy, and I'm not going to get that dump off. Or whoever's playing Spright isn't going to get that dump off. So, hope you guys enjoyed it. Please let me know what you think down in the comments below. I actually think I did pretty good after just waking up, barely drinking any water because I just woke up, and not stumbling. I did a good job not stumbling and coming back in my words. I think I did it like twice in the video and then once there at the end. So, anyway, thank you guys. Like, comment, subscribe. See you later.